So thank you for joining me again. My name is Dr. Erin Walborn-Sterantino, and I am an audiologist here at Audiologic Solutions Hearing Center, focusing on tinnitus treatment and testing. So in this video, we're going to be talking about the effects of tinnitus on health and well-being. In the last video, we talked about what is tinnitus and what are the causes of tinnitus and what were the current theories of production of tinnitus. And all of that explained possibly why you have your tinnitus. So in this video, we're going to talk about why tinnitus is more bothersome for some people than others. So we know that not everybody is affected by tinnitus the same. Tinnitus affects everyone differently. And for some people, it's barely noticeable. For other people, it can be extremely bothersome, even debilitating. And so when we are looking at our tinnitus treatment options in another video, we'll be looking to see how do we bring you down from bothersome to non-bothersome. And that's how we know that we have provided effective tinnitus management treatment. Even though the volume of the tinnitus may stay the same, we are looking to change the bothersomeness of it for those who are bothered. So let's look at how does the brain decide? Well, the brain interprets and emotionally responds to tinnitus based on how noticeable and bothersome it is. So if you have had like a lack of sleep and a lot of stress, you may already be in a state that when you first notice your tinnitus, it becomes automatically bothersome. But we also know it's a vicious cycle, and once you notice your tinnitus, it can affect your sleep, your concentration, your relationships, your mental health, and your mood. Tinnitus itself is neutral. Remember, it's not a disease, it's a symptom of something else. But for some people with tinnitus, the brain interprets tinnitus as a sign of danger, and it activates the body's internal alarm system. Now, if that alarm system stays switched on, tinnitus continues to be treated as a threat, even when no real danger exists. So, how does your body decide what's a dangerous signal and what's the sign of a safety signal? And this will be with any sound that we hear. A sound is processed or treated as dangerous or a threat if there is an emotional negative reaction to it. And if there is a negative emotional reaction, attention becomes repeatedly drawn to the sound and it flags your brain that it is dangerous. And then your brain remembers. It's the limbic system. It takes a memory of it and says, every time you hear this sound, this is a dangerous sound. If your brain senses a sound that is neutral, that does not cause you to have an emotional reaction, it's often not interpreted as a threat. Attention just shifts away from it and you naturally habituate to it. So one of the questions that we ask is, what was your initial emotional response to your tinnitus? And most people have a negative response to their tinnitus. And that's nothing to be ashamed of. It just happens to be what is true for many people. And when our brains or our nervous system sense that this is dangerous, or we have this negative emotion with it, sound becomes conscious and important and labeled as a threat. If there was no emotion linked to it, you'd have natural habituation and it would be not important. So I want to walk you through now how your autonomic nervous system plays a role. So the autonomic nervous system is the part of our body that is basically our internal alarm system. So here we are, we're walking through the woods and you hear a twig snap. Now the sound itself of a twig snapping is neutral, but within milliseconds, your nervous system is asking, could this be dangerous? Now, how does the nervous system ask? What's happening here? Well, your nervous system is looking at it's called neuroception. It's a term coined by Stephen Porges of the polyvagal theory, and it's the adaptive state that your nervous system takes to decide whether you're in safety, whether you need action and mobility, or if you need a freeze response. So your nervous system is checking outside of you. So it's actually looking outside of you into the woods. Is there any sign of physical danger? It's looking inside of you. Is your heart beating faster? Are your muscles tense? And your evaluation is influenced by past and future thoughts. What's happened before when you've been in the woods? Are you coming into the situation having worry, fear, or anxiety? Your current stress level, expectations of you, uncertainty, lack of sense of control, and context can all influence how your nervous system perceives that neutral sound. And if the brain concludes and the nervous system concludes this might be a threat, then the following happens. Your attention increases, your heart rate increases, your muscles tense, your stress hormones are released, and you become hypervigilant. Now, this same sound now feels much more important. So here's scenario number 2. You hear a twig snap while walking alone in the woods. The sound itself is neutral. Your brain quickly considers what it might be. Maybe it's just a squirrel or a branch falling. And you remind yourself that you've heard this sound while walking through the woods many times before. And you entered the woods without any major stressors or worries, and you've been enjoying your time using all of your present moment senses like sight and sound and feeling the air on your skin and seeing the sun shining down and feeling the air on your skin and those types of things. So when that happens, your heart rate stays normal, your muscles remain relaxed, and your attention naturally returns to the trailhead. So here, the twig snapping naturally fades into the background because your brain and your nervous system decided it wasn't a threat. So what changed? The sound itself did not change, but the brain and the body's response to the sound changed. And so now we have to look at what's the difference between stress versus anxiety. Well, stress is generally a response to an external cause. So a twig snapped, you quickly evaluate the situation. There was nothing to run away from. It has resolved. You see a bear in the woods, you freeze, the bear runs away, the stressor is gone, your body goes back to a state of homeostasis, right? Stress can be positive or negative. You're preparing a Christmas dinner for your family. Now, that can be very stressful. There's time demands and expectations and just things that have to get done. And so, when that's over, your stressor is gone, life goes back to normal. Anxiety, on the other hand, is when we have a response to an internal cause, such as a reaction to a stressor. This is ongoing worry or anticipation. It's constant, even when there's no immediate threat. It's what we tend to do in our thoughts. We're in the past or in the future, and we're thinking about the bear that was in the woods. And the next time we enter the woods, we have a bear in our mind that's not there this time, but we're acting like there is. So that is the difference between stress and anxiety. And what this means, our internal state matters. Okay? So if you have been calm and stress free, you have a more natural habituation to new and or undesired sounds. If you've been feeling crazy, stressed, overwhelmed, the new or undesired sound can send you into stress mode, just like it did in the woods with the twigs snapping. And a little bit of stress is very good for us. It gets us moving, it gets us up and out. And look at the yellow. This is our peak performance. We do need some stress in our lives to get up and go do things. This is what's gotten me talking in front of you today. But too much stress without the right coping strategies or adaptive coping strategies can cause burnout and breakdown and increased tinnitus, increased sound sensitivity. And we do know that stress and anxiety do affect the body. These are all evidence-based things. And you will see that in every aspect of the body that there may be problems that occur from stress, such as difficulty concentrating, memory issues, irritability, and brain fog. There could be gastrointestinal issues, changes in appetite, indigestion, reflux, nausea. Immune system can be slower to recover and have prolonged inflammation. The cardiovascular system, there could be increased heart rate and increased blood pressure and increased long-term risk of heart disease and stroke. So there's many things that stress can affect, including our tinnitus and our perception of tinnitus. And so that brings us to if you've ever had an adverse childhood experience, because adverse childhood experiences can shape our stress response as an adult. So if you were exposed to any abuse, physical, emotional, or sexual, if there was any neglect, physical or emotional, or household challenges, even divorce, this even includes a bullying from school, traumas that were sustained. This can lead to the nervous system learning to stay on, constantly scanning for threat. Now, this was very adaptive for you if this happened in your childhood because it helped keep you alive and moved you on to an adult. However, it can become the default operating mode in adulthood. And we know that chronic stress can shape this nervous system to stay on high alert. This is hypervigilance. And hypervigilance causes the brain to continuously scan for signs of danger in the environment and within the body. So, what this might look or feel like, it might feel like you're constantly scanning for danger. You might feel restless or on edge. You might have difficulty concentrating. You may feel unable to relax even in safe places, and you might become easily irritated. So, 64% of US adults have experienced at least one of these, and 1 in 6 have had 4 or more. There is a 4 times higher likelihood of having depression or anxiety if you've had 4 or more. Now, the good news is the nervous system is adaptable. Safe relationships, effective therapies, and mindfulness techniques can help reshape the stress response. But if you've had a lot of chronic stress in your life, growing up with adverse childhood events, or even just being in the day and age we're in now with there's lots of wars going on, we have a political climate, we have climate change, we have a lot of demands on us. With the cell phones being with us all the time, people are always trying to get a hold of us, right? So if you have chronic stress that has just been building and building and building, your level of tolerance or this window of tolerance shrinks. So you don't have as much resilience to absorb a new sound that has been classified as dangerous. So this is where neutral sounds can easily tip the scale and become a threat or dangerous when there's nothing to it that is just a neutral sound. On the other hand, if you have been more calm, less stressed, you have great coping strategies living in this world that we live in, you will have much more resilience and much more tolerance to handle or to absorb stressors without overwhelm. And when this happens, this is when you're probably more likely to tune out your tinnitus and focus on other things. So, one of the reflection questions for you then is we already looked at what was your emotional reaction when you first heard your tinnitus. But the second question then is what was going on in your life leading up to the time that you heard it? And oftentimes I will have people tell me that they had their tinnitus for a very long time and it was fine, they could habituate to it. But then all of a sudden it just became far more bothersome. Or somebody might say, I never had it at all. And then all of a sudden, bam, it just happened. So I like to look back at least 3 months, even up to 5 years, to look at what was going on in your life. What were different stressors? And stressors could be things like a death of a loved one or a family member, marital divorce or reconciliation, or a marriage, retirement, taking care of elderly parents, some sort of a great personal achievement for yourself, right? Not all stress is bad. There can be many things. Problems with a boss or a superior, fighting with family members. There may be many things that could go on that could contribute to an ongoing level of stress in your life. And it's typical that I see with my patients that when they've had a lot of stressors leading up to, now they hear their bothersome tinnitus or tinnitus, and then it becomes this vicious cycle where they can't let go of it. So, how does chronic stress drive hypervigilance toward tinnitus? Well, you might have some pre existing stressors, some of these adverse childhood experiences, or just stress in general from everyday living. When we have a higher state of stress, our physiologic state is a little weaker. We have a lower window of tolerance. And so now, when we hear a new stressor, if it's a sound, a neutral signal could be flagged as a threat. And then this triggers thoughts and emotions and reactions of worry, fear, anxiety. And when that happens to a new sound, we become fixated on it. And so we have increased attention and focus on our new stressor. And this results in the brain and the body in a higher state of alert with hearing more tinnitus. And then the process continues. So I am going to stop there for this particular presentation, and we are going to talk about evaluating and treating and managing tinnitus in another video. Thank you so much.